of the people out there, my sisters, my aunties, my cousins and friends, and even a lot of my audience who have heard me speak in the past and been very critical of black women as a whole, as it relates to the relationship between us. And I'm sure you guys know and have heard in the past the divisions that may be amongst us and the ongoing feud over time, over the years, and how the government has exploited and helped to divide our home. The no man in the house rule is a real thing, and I encourage all of you to look this up and do your research on that. Also, the welfare state, and this is not just food stamps and housing projects. This is the welfare state, a carefully constructed plan to divide the black community using funds from the federal government to almost pay each one of us, and specifically black women, almost as a militia to go against black men. Now, in the future, or in the past, we've learned sometimes overseas, different factions of one people will go against each other, the North Koreans versus the South Koreans, or the Taiwanese versus the Chinese, the Ukrainians versus the Russians. Well, in our government and in our country, sometimes this happens as well, where the government will use typically the East Coast versus the West Coast, this rap group against that rap group, this jail block against that jail block. But they've actually recently have went further to use and divide in a gender manner. But it's terrible when you're slicing up people and you're able to fund male against female and create the chaos in our community. And the government should not be doing this. You know, this is the last thing you would think that a government would do. But again, when a government, the liberal left, is trying to complete their version of bringing down the black community or dividing us, there's no limits that they're not willing to go. You know, when drugs don't work anymore, to bring them in your community the way we wanted it to, which done a lot of damage. When we can't use violence or we can't use gangs and things like that, well, what other way can we use the black community against each other? Well, if we could use the federal funding to prop black women up and, you know, create housing projects, create community colleges and incentives, if they would just help us prosecute maybe some of these men, put a lot of them out of the home, raise their divorce rates, try to seize control as mother and father and administrator. And unfortunately, a lot of this have worked where, you know, the homes now are severed, they're broken, and you have one parent now, specifically the woman, working overtime to take care of the family, and it has just been exhausting. A lot of the young men, you know, without the fathers being around, they're not going to listen. It's hard enough to get them to listen to a male, much less a mom having to go out there and say, hey, I don't want you hanging with the Parus. I don't want you hanging with the Road to 60 Crips. I don't want you out shooting and killing each other, or I don't want you out having babies and abortions every single weekend. With the fathers being home, the structure, the security, and the organization has broken down in the community, and it has forced a burden on our sisters. They've also tried to use black women to go on a defaming campaign on how terrible black men are, how destructive we are. And again, this is the government, the federal government, not being able to stop our growth, not being able to stop us as a people from being productive and voting. So again, what better way to hurt these people is using them against one another, having them go against each other. Now again, this is not something that is unheard of, but it is unheard of domestically. You would think, again, that this is something that we do siding with North Korea against South Korea, or we'll side with the Ukrainians, and these are the same people, by the way, against the Russians, or with the South Africans against the North Africans, or, you know, siding with the Taiwanese against the Chinese for our economic, you know, because the division puts us a leg up, or we're putting the Sunni Muslim against the Shia Muslim. But when the government goes as far as to domestically try to splice male against female, the same race against each other, this is a line going too far. And I've always called for a congressional investigation. I think the federal government should be held responsible for creating the welfare state, creating the concept of the welfare state. If you don't know what that is, it is a plot, an idea to use the federal government to fund, using the taxpayers' dollars, and prop up our women with a digital man, making Uncle Sam her husband, Jesus her husband, backing her with financial support, where the man and her used to come together with their incomes. The government is like, no, we'll step in, we'll give you the federal funding, the community funding, we'll give you the financial aid, we'll give you the housing projects, we'll give you the food stamps, we'll help you, and you'll be the father and the mother. And this burden, I think many black women now are at a point where they don't want to continue this experiment. It has done nothing but injure their relationships. It has caused untold pain and division in our community. Boys like myself grow up without a shadow. As you can see my shadow, they remove your shadow and your likeness, which is your father's. And, you know, they've even convinced a lot of our sisters that, you know, you could be the father, or, you know, an uncle or brother or some sort of mentor. And this is so terrible to even suggest something like that. But today, people like Thomas Sowell, persons like Larry Elder, and many other of our scholars and scientists and activists have helped to appreciate that this is dangerous for a government to come in and tamper with the black community in this manner. Not only that, and we'll be done right here very briefly. Not only that is it dangerous, but to use taxpayer-funded dollars to create this type of atmosphere, it is very dangerous and psychotic, and it really shows you that, unfortunately, sometimes our government knows no limits. And I have been very critical of black women. I have been very painful to them. I've said things that I've went too far. But again, this is what happens when you're at war, nasty insults and things like that. But this is not an apology campaign, but I do want our sisters to know that there is no hate, no love lost. I have been hurt by my father being missing out of the home because of the complacency of my mom. And then you think of, I live in a country, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know where you are. You could be in Singapore, Dubai, Qatar, Ethiopia, I don't know where you are, Japan. But when you have a country that is comprised of smaller little countries called states, right? Illinois, California, New York, Massachusetts, and in all of these states, if you will, more than 75 to 80% of the fathers are missing in all 50 states. That is not missing fathers, that is an abduction. That is social engineering, and that is a crime. And this has taken place, and there has not been enough emphasis on us getting a congressional investigation, getting an international investigation, getting support from the global community, and even our local community to make sure that this doesn't happen again, that a government cannot be weaponized against the people to do this type of destruction. Now, we have dealt with more issues that the government have done, like bringing drugs in our community, creating laws and crimes to homogenize the people, taxation without representation. So we've seen in the past, on smaller scales, the government come in and tamper with a people's way of life, living, family, genealogy, education, health. The government has done many things that are terrible. You look at places like Gary, Indiana, and look at the water systems in some of these so-called black communities and the water treatment plants. So again, it's not far-fetched, and none of us are like shocked that the government did that. Many of us are like, yeah, man, there they go again, always up to no good. So I just want to say right here, right now, while I can, while you're listening, We're going to talk about this a little bit more off camera because I feel like I can relax a little bit more. But I want to apologize publicly to our black women who I truly love dearly. You are just the salt of the earth. You are just every single thing that is the best thing about the black community is our sisters. And they are the standard in which a community can raise above everything. So I want to say right now, while you're listening, I love you, sisters, and I apologize if I've been very, very hurtful to you in the past, and I've said things that have been very painful. And as a black man, you know, looking at how our sisters have been used, the damage it has caused, the image and likeness of us being removed, the welfare state, our fathers being abducted and thrown out the home. And, you know, so in this campaign that I don't need a black man, only Jesus, this has hurt us. This is where the terms of you a bitch and this and that has come from because of the hurt. And then going off and, you know, looking to marry every other woman but you. You know, again, we don't want to contribute to the government because nobody's winning now. Okay, yeah, we convince black women to do this and put their husbands out the house and, you know, prosecute these men and talk dirty and say you hate them, da da da. And now black men, guess what? Look what they did. And now we're like, yeah, oh yeah, you know what? F you, bitch. And so again, we're not winning. What we're doing is we're creating more chaos. I don't want to be a part of the chaos. The same thing with the drugs. I might have used sold drugs and contribute to, you know, my sneakers and my gold chains and everything, but I hurt my community. And I also want to apologize for my past in the early 90s as a child, selling drugs, poison, and filth to my community. That was not my intentions. Again, a lot of those drugs, as you can see, was brought into our community as they helped to break down people like Dr. King and get rid of people like Malcolm X and the Black Panthers and usher in drugs from overseas in our community. So again, we are familiar with the governments, the liberal left government, and how they do things and how terrible they could be. So again, I want to just give my public apology to black women and say I love you and my apologies again. And I would like to move forward. I would like us to be stronger than ever and work together to create a future and get rid of some of the generational curses that was heaped upon us. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. Thank you.